Going on today, I wanted to go over how Justin Gaethje beat Ilia Topuria, specifically from a kinesiology perspective, focusing a lot on biomechanics. The first thing to look at is just how did Justin Gaethje do so much damage? The biggest thing he did was reduce Ilia's ability to move his head. Justin Gaethje starting off landed a lot of jabs, specifically as Ilia went to step in. And why this is so important is because Ilia stepping in reduces his ability to move his head, as well as it increases the velocity of the collision. Uh, Ilia stepping in means he's moving towards Justin's punch. And Gaethje's hand is accelerating even faster into Ilia's head. This also means Ilia is forcing his weight onto his front leg and forcing his front leg to accept the weight. Since he's forcing and stepping onto that front leg, it reduces his head movement. He's already moving forward, meaning it's a lot harder to pull his head back. He can't bend at the hip and he can't move his shoulders as well to get out of the way. And his front leg accepting that forward weight reduces the lateral movement that he can perform because his front leg is already accepting weight going forward. It's going to be a lot harder. He has to then override that movement to get to the side. If you look here, you could see Gaethje landing that 1-2 that kind of totally turned the tide of the fight. Here you could see Gaethje timing a shot. As soon as Ilia goes to step forward, Gaethje lands that jab, and then here specifically, that jab stands Ilia up, raising his center of mass, potentially making it harder for him to move out of the way. Since he's also a lot more stood up, it's going to make his hip mobility, he can't do as much from there. He's not in an athletic position, and he can't get out of the way. So the typical exchange between Gaethje and Topuria, specifically when Gaethje did well, looked like this. Topuria was committing to going forward. Gaethje was timing that entry and then landing that jab, specifically as Topuria moves forward, right? And then the big thing here, not only is it increasing the force of collision, but since Ilia is stepping forward, he has a reduced amount of time to react. And along with that, he has fewer options to go. He can't pull his head back. It's harder to get to the side, and then that jab lands. It takes time for Topuria to move out of the way, even though it is subconscious. And I would go as far as to say Ilia's head movement and any great MMA fighter's head movement is automatic. Automatic doesn't mean instant. It still has to take Ilia time to move. And then once again, because he has to move out of the way, he's not necessarily prepared to move out of the way. It takes more time. The big takeaway here is Gaethje was just able to reduce Ilia's ability to move his head and land there. Now another thing to look at is how come Ilia knocked out his past 3 opponents and couldn't knock out Gaethje? And if I had to go back and look at these, so do you. Here we have Topuria landing clean on Volk's chin. Volk was specifically moving to his left and right into Topuria's right hand, which is just going to, like we said before, increase the velocity of that collision. It's just going to make that punch land even harder, as well as the fact that, Volk's hands aren't anywhere near where they should be to block this shot. And then if we look towards Max, very similar scenario here where Ilia just lands a hook on the chin. Ilia's obviously very powerful, but it's a lot about placement, not necessarily just pure power. So here you can see he lands perfectly on Max's chin. Max doesn't have his hands up, and he just sits him down. And then one more AI-created video here. We have Ilia landing clean on Charles's head. Charles doesn't have his hands up, and then in this case, Charles was moving forward into this shot that Ilia threw. So how come Ilia couldn't land this against Justin Gaethje? Gaethje did an excellent job with his lead hand. When he was throwing the jab, obviously he's throwing it to land, but he's also able to use it as a frame to get Ilia's lead hand not to land. Gaethje also did a very good job bending forward. He would often bend over this hip, bring his head down, and what that's going to do is that's going to open you up to knees and kicks from here, but Ilia doesn't throw kicks or knees. So in Gaethje's case, this was extremely safe. When Gaethje fights a guy like Fiziev or Charles, he can't do that. But against Ilia, who doesn't throw knees and kicks, that will work. If we go back to that lead hand, he's able to frame and then bring his head over this way. Once again here, you could see this frame. I think this is a pretty good shot. Ilia throws that right hand, but Gaethje has his left arm here, forcing that right hand to miss, and at the same time, Gaethje pulls his head away. He's able to decrease the velocity of the collision because he's pulling his head away as opposed to moving into the punch. So this is going to decrease the force of the punch. When we saw Ilia knock out Volk, Max, and Charles, they were all moving into the shot or at least not moving away. But Gaethje was able to move his head away the entire time. Ilia did a very good job going to the body, especially in that second round, because Gaethje was unable to move his body out of the way. Gaethje could move his head out of the way, but because he's unable to move his body, that's where Ilia did the best. Obviously, there's a ton of other things that go into this, but I just wanted to give a pretty quick kinesiology breakdown on how this worked.